Jesus gives us three truths. I'm going to take them a little bit out of order from the text. Usually I preach using the text as an outline. But since Luke was able to group things together as he saw fit, I'm going to go ahead and take his pattern. I'm going to teach the first truth that you see in the Scripture first, the third truth that you see in the Scripture second, and the second truth that you see in the Scripture third. That doesn't really matter, but I just want to share that with you. The fact of the matter is, Jesus starts off with a very important question. The setting is he's praying with his disciples, those 12 men who were following him everywhere. And he asks a very simple question. Who do people say I am? Who do people say I am? Now this is part one of a two-part question, so this is part one of a two-part truth. This first question is an amazing question to me. This first question is really the question of evangelism. You see, Jesus is preparing his disciples all the way through his ministry to turn the world upside down with his message. And so in order to reach a lost and a dying world, the first question that you have to ask is, who do people say that Jesus is? Once you've identified a group of people that you want to share Jesus Christ with, the first question is, who do they say Jesus is? That gives you your starting point in actually sharing who he is. If you identified your family as the group of people that you're going to share Jesus Christ with, you really need to know who Uncle Hank thinks that Jesus is. If you start from who you know Jesus is, you're not going to match up. So the starting point of evangelism is always this question, who do people think that Jesus is? For example, some think that Jesus was a good teacher. You know your starting point is going to be that starting point of who Jesus is as seen in a good teacher. What does a good teacher do? Well, a good teacher tells the truth, right? He teaches the truth. Well, Jesus makes some very exclusive claims. He says that he is the way, the truth, and the life, that no one comes to the Father but through him. He says that he will return with the glory of the Father and the angels. He is the Son of God. And so he makes claims of divinity. So if you're going after a person who believes that Jesus is simply a good teacher and only a good teacher, what do you have to do? You start at their starting point. Yeah, he's a good teacher. Good teachers tell the truth. He said that he is divine. So either he is a good teacher or he was a complete lunatic because he's running around claiming to be God and forgiving sins. There's a choice there that they have to come to realize. And so when you evangelize, this is the primary question of evangelism. Who does your neighborhood say that Jesus is? Who does this neighborhood say that Jesus is? When I approach the text and give it to you as a pastor, I always ask the question, what do people believe about the text? Who do you say that Jesus is? This is the primary question in evangelism. But it's not just the primary question in evangelism anymore. In our Christian life, it's important for us to ask, who do people say that Jesus is, so that we can grow mentally and spiritually and get define a ready defense of the faith. But it's also important in our lives to ask who people say Jesus is, people who have studied this and have looked at this. I don't know about you, but sometimes I'm slow in running the race, okay? Sometimes I'm not as bright as other people are. In fact, you might say I'm not really the sharpest tool in the shed, oftentimes. But you know what? I read people who are. So when you ask, who do people say Jesus is, you not only ask that as an evangelistic question, but as a personal growth question too. Who does C.S. Lewis say that Jesus is? Who does Francis Schaeffer say that Jesus is? How about Os Guinness? Or maybe even Norman Geisler? Who do the brightest and best minds in the Christian faith today, Ravi Zacharias, Hank Hanegraaff, who do they say Jesus is? Because they have had to struggle as well. And perhaps they have put into words what you are struggling with. They have put into words the answer that they've come up with, and perhaps you can grow that way. Who do people say that Jesus is? The second question, though, Jesus turns this question on who people say Jesus is. Some say he's John the Baptist, others Elijah, and some a prophet who has come back to life. Then Jesus asks them personally, but who do you say that I am? Who do you say that I am? Peter answers that question. He says, you are the Christ of God. But let me tell you something. You will not get into heaven on Peter's faith, on Peter's answer. There's at one point in your life that you have to own the answer to this question. You have to grapple with this question. You have to answer it on your own, because you're not going to float in on somebody else's faith and somebody else's understanding. You're not going to come into a relationship with God through my relationship with God or through your neighbor's relationship with God. God has no grandchildren. He only has children. And so at some point, you have to answer this question, who do you say that I am?